it came up then that, a lot of these officers who are being investigated are still serving, and it does raise questions about, whether there is a kind of wider cultural problem at GMP. I spoke today to the author of that report, Dame Vera Baird, and she told me, that same sense of entitlement that she'd talked about in that report and that she'd seen in terms of the treatment of these female detainees was the same kind of entitlement that she fears the officer involved in this incident was displaying in that quite horrific clip that many people have seen by now.
Let's start off with this, though, because it's an important story. The ongoing fallout from last night's incident, well, it was 2 nights ago, at Manchester Airport, in which a policeman appeared to be filmed kicking a man in the head whilst lying on the floor. And tonight, protesters have staged a demonstration outside the Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham's office with the lawyer of Muhammad Fahir Amzad saying his client has a cyst on his brain. It's been confirmed that an officer has been suspended, and the Greater Manchester Police has referred itself to the policing watchdog, the IOPC, for investigation. Andy Burnham gave his reaction earlier.
It's a very disturbing image and hard to justify. But of course, I've had the opportunity now to see the full situation as it escalates, and it does escalate very rapidly, and there are issues on both sides. You can't say that the whole situation is clear cut because of the way it unfolds. But then I don't resile from what I originally said. Even though I've seen all of the build-up, it's still a disturbing image, and it's right, therefore, that the matter has been referred to the Independent Office of Police Conduct, that an individual has been suspended, and there will now be a full investigation.
OK, so that's Andy Burnham. Let's speak to Constance Kampfner, the Times Northern correspondent. Let's get the latest on this developing story. Hi, Constance.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Now, so we know there was a demonstration outside Rochdale police station last night. That was mainly the local Muslim community that gathered, I think mainly of Pakistani origin. But tonight, the focus moved to Manchester city centre and a much wider range of people, of demonstrators.
Yeah, that's right. Stand Up to Racism organised the demonstration tonight outside Andy Burnham's office. And as you say, it was a broader cast of people who had kind of been concerned by this video they'd seen online and wanted to come and express their outrage and their solidarity as well with the Pakistani community in Rochdale.
What were people calling for?
Well, they were calling for this officer who has now been suspended. Some of them were calling for him to face criminal charges. Now, we don't know whether or not those might be coming down the road, but they were upset that they felt that the police response had been somewhat to sort of try and brush this off at first before kind of releasing a much stronger statement, really condemning what had happened. But, people felt that was too little too late and that there was kind of racism at the heart of this.
And how have people responded to Andy Burnham's appeals not to politicise this? I think he said at one point, I think it was Dal Babu, the former senior Met police officer, was irresponsible, or calls to say this was a racist incident were irresponsible. I'm wondering, did people refer to that? Have people started targeting the Greater Manchester Metro Mayor himself for what he said?
Not particularly on those comments. I think the feeling at the demonstration was much more kind of about the police and the way this incident had been handled. And it's important to remember that the local MP who spoke to the family tonight said that they were also keen for this not to be politicised. Certainly not for any kind of violence in their name, or for this to kind of escalate in any kind of way other than peaceful protest. And that for them it's really about kind of getting to the bottom of what happened and ensuring justice is done.
Yeah, and as a number of people have been emphasising today, the brother of two of the men who've been arrested, including one who was kicked in the head, is a serving police officer with the GMP.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. So the family's lawyer who came out to speak to the media outside Rochdale Police Station, that's the solicitor Ahmed Yaqub, who you might remember from when he was running to be an independent MP in Birmingham very recently. He said that the brother of the family, not one of the ones caught up in what happened in the airport, was an officer with the GMP and is now too afraid to go to work, that he fears that some of the treatment that his brothers received at the hands of his colleagues, essentially, could be kind of meted out to him, and that he has told his supervisor he won't be coming in.
And has the supervisor agreed to this? I mean, have the police put out a statement on this?
We haven't heard any more on that front. The family, I think, is kind of putting itself together before making any coordinated sort of public statements at this moment.
Yeah. And Constance, I'm just wondering what this might do to the reputation of the Greater Manchester Police, because they were once put in special measures, but their current chief constable, is it Steve Watson, he won widespread praise, including from the former Home Secretary Suella Braverman, for his no-nonsense approach to policing. We're going to deal with every crime. How much pressure is he now under?
Yeah, I mean, it's important to note that GMP has kind of really improved in the last couple of years and has admitted that it was in a very bad place. But, you know, this comes just days after the force was criticised for its treatment of detainees, especially female detainees, in a report that found that officers were, and it's a quote, using their powers unwisely, unnecessarily, and sometimes unlawfully. Now, that was just a few days ago. The force and Stephen Watson apologised, said they were taking all of those recommendations on board. But it came up then that, you know, a lot of these officers who are being investigated are still serving, and it does raise questions about, you know, whether there is a kind of wider cultural problem at GMP. I spoke today to the author of that report, Dame Vera Baird, and she told me, you know, that same sense of entitlement that she'd talked about in that report and that she'd seen in terms of the treatment of these female detainees was the same kind of entitlement that she fears the officer involved in this incident was displaying in that quite horrific clip that many people have seen by now.
It'll be interesting to see how the IOPC handles this, what they unearth, and what the full story is. Constance Camphoner, The Times' Northern correspondent, thank you very much.
Just here outside the police station, look at the cars and the people that have turned up in Rochdale to show support to the brothers and the mother who was attacked.
We stand in solidarity with all those who are oppressed around the world. Just in America, a woman with schizophrenia was shot dead. We hear the names, we remember the riots last time in London when the whole country came to a lockdown.